Okay, this is a full paper 3, so this is going to be your second exam. This is the one that has websites and spreadsheets in it. This is the March 2015 one. If you want to have a go at this, the files, there'll be a link in the description at the bottom. So, the first thing it's asking us to do is to make a new word process document, which is going to be used as our evidence file. Make sure your name, centre number, candidate number appears in the header of each page, and save it in your work area as that followed by your candidate number. It gives you an example. Okay, so in a new Word document, in the header, you need to put your details. And then it asks you to save that with that file name. So if you go into the folder that you're using, and I'm going to call it that followed by my candidate number, and press save. So it then says locate and download the following files from the website. Now it's not going to ask you to do that in your exam because you're not allowed access to the internet, so the files will be in the shared area for you anyway, so we can kind of skip that step. I've already copied them and pasted them into my user area. It says you can use an online encyclopedia to do steps 8 to 31 again. You're not going to be able to do that, so we won't worry. It then says create a web page called b2n.htm. It must work in all browsers, which it will. It needs to have a table structure like this one below. Table borders and grid lines need to be visible, center aligned within the browser, and you need all the dimensions that are shown here. Now this didn't come up before, and it stumped quite a few of them in the exam. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So in Dreamweaver, we're making a new HTML file because it had .htm at the end. To save it, you need to go to File, Save As. Keep everything in the same folder, which is hopefully going to be the only folder that you have in your user area, and make sure you give it the correct name, so b2n.htm, and press save. So we need to firstly find out how many columns and rows. So it's got 3 columns. We've got 1, 2, and then this third one over here. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3 columns and 6 rows. So we're going to do insert table. We want 3 columns and 6 rows. The table width we're going to put as pixels. Now at this point we need to find out what the widest point of it's going to be, which is going to be this one here. It goes all the way across. It's 700. We can also see that down the bottom because 500 plus 200 means that it's 700 pixels across. So I'm just going to flick back to that question paper because it does say here that all dimensions are in pixels. So the border thickness we're going to set as 1 because it said that it needed to be printed out. So we've set everything correctly, and I press OK, and it will have created our table. The only other thing that we need to do is if we click just under the table, so we get it all selected. It said that it wanted it center aligned. We might as well do that now while we remember, because it's going to be worth a mark. Okay, so the first row at the top needs to be fully merged. So if we highlight those, right click, table, merge cells, and merge that one. We then need to merge all the way down the right hand side apart from the last row. And finally these two were merged across the bottom. Okay, so it looks like this. So we've now got to go and set the cell dimensions. So if we click in this first cell, we've got the cell properties down the bottom. Now the width we know is going to be 700, which hasn't worked. The height is going to be 150, so we can press enter, and that will set the height of that to 150. I think the reason the width didn't work is because the table's forced to be that wide anyway. The next one is 200 by 200 for both of them, so the width, so hopefully this one will work. It's going to be 200, which it moved slightly, which is good, and the height is going to be 200. And then the same for this one, the width is 200 and the height is 200. We have to do that all the way down, so just bear with me. And 200. again for that row. Hopefully when you're doing this, you should be picking up quite a few marks if you figured out how to do it. So then down the bottom, that's going to be 200 by 150. And this one across the bottom would be 500 by 150. 500, which it won't let us type in because it's forced to be that, by 150. So, just going to double check this one is 300 by 800, but I'm guessing it won't let us type it in. No, it has. 300 by 800. Okay, so those are 200 by 200, 300 by 800, and then all of our cells are set correctly. So the letter shown in the table must not appear, so it's basically saying don't type in the letters. It then says place the image title in cell A and large in cell D. So A and D. So up here we need to do insert image, and we are hopefully in the right place, which we are, and we're looking for title, and press OK. And in here insert image, and it was the one that had large written at the end, so that one there. Okay, right, so then place the image info in cell M, which is the one at the bottom. So insert image info, which goes along the bottom, and then in cell L enter the text recently edited by, followed by your name, center number and candidate number, and set it as H2. So L is the bottom left hand one. So we enter the text recently edited by the 20295, and then your candidate number, and set it as H2. So highlight it, and then down here under format, H2 is heading 2. If it says to set P, that means paragraph, and obviously H1, H3, etc. is all in that list as well. So in cell C enter the text rhinoceros. Cell C was this one, and then lemur, and then otter, and lizard, and set all the text as H1. I'm going to highlight them all, format them as heading 1. Using the most appropriate image from image 1 to image 8, place in the cell rhinoceros, lemur, otter and lizard. So this is where it said you could use an encyclopedia if you weren't sure what each of the animals were. So insert image, and then you're going to put all the correct images in. I'm just going to skip past that bit on the video because you'll all be bored watching me put the images in, but all you do basically is select the image and press OK, and it include it in the box. Okay, so now all the images are in. You notice that one of them is a lot bigger. I'm guessing they're going to ask you to resize it, which they do in step 9. Make sure each of the images placed in step 8 is 196 pixels wide and maintains aspect ratio, which means it doesn't stretch. So 196 pixels wide. To do this, click on the image. Don't click on the cogs. They don't like you doing that because it changes the original image. What you need to do is, I forgot already, 196 pixels wide. All you need to do is delete the height, and then in the width type in what it wanted to be, 196, and press enter, and it will maintain aspect ratio. If you then click in another cell, your table will jump back to the correct position. Set an attribute for each image to display appropriate text if the image is not available. So for some reason the image can't load, whatever you type in here will automatically appear. So what I'd suggest that you do for each one is type in something like image of a rhinoceros. Okay, do that for each of them. I'm not going to bother going through and showing you because it's just the same process. You click on the picture, in the outbox, image of a lemur, etc. Then it says make the image M1531 large JPEG, a hyperlink to open the web page, which is this address. I'm going to copy and paste it. You'll have to type it in because it's on paper, don't make mistakes. And it opens in a new window called Webmaster. So the image large was this one. Now this is where I always recommend not to use any of these if possible, or insert hyperlink. Always use them down the bottom, because they don't work for images if you do these. So if you can get used to using it down here for everything, then it won't cause a problem. So the link is that website. What you then need to do is you have to click out of that so that you get the availability to use the target box. Make sure the image is selected, and it was underscore webmaster. Press enter, and that picks you up another mark. Save your web page, file and save, and then it starts talking about editing something else. So you will edit a style sheet which is going to be attached to this web page. Use the most efficient methods to create and edit the styles. All colour codes must be in 6-digit hexadecimal form, and make sure your style sheet contains no HTML. So using a suitable software package, open the style sheet M1531, file, open. This is our most appropriate package, and we've got it here. It says cascading style sheet document, so it's that one, and it's given us the table for once, which is nice because that's probably the most difficult bit to do. And it says save this style sheet in your work area as that, followed by your candidate number .css. So file, save as, followed by your candidate number .css, and then apply to your style sheet a style to define the background colour of the web page. These are in hexadecimal. So for background colour, I'm going to make a new one down here, and we're going to do body. I'm going to tab across so it's under this one. Open your wiggly bracket, and then we get this come up. Now it's background colour. Try and use the drop down boxes, it saves you making errors. And then we're not going to pick a colour, we're going to put a hexadecimal one in, and so it always starts with a hash. So it needs to be green, blue, red. Obviously they've written it in a different order, so it's always going to be RGB. So it's going to be hash A2A8, so hash A2A8 6E. Okay, and that will set the background colour. Going to close the wiggly bracket on that one for now. We may end up putting some more things in, but we'll see as we go through. So the next one is, it says set styles H1 and H2 so that the text displayed is center aligned and the font displayed is etc, etc. So we're going to do H1 first, and open wiggly bracket. So to start with, it wants the font family to be these things here. So if we choose font-family, I'm going to have to keep skipping back to it so I can type them in correctly. So the first choice was going to be that one. Now because it's 2 words, it has to be in speech marks. The second choice was this one. Again, you're going to have to type them in. I'm just copying and pasting them because I can't spell. And then the third choice is going to be the browser's default sans serif font. So what you do for that one is you just put in sans serif. Okay. We're going to put a semicolon in because we're going to move to the next bit. I'm going to put it on a new line, keep it nice and organised. It says that the H1 needs to be a height of 24 pixels. So what we're going to do is because I've skipped between the two, it's deleted my drop down box. So we want font dash size to be 24 pixels, and it also needs to have a colour with a green component of 1F and no other colour components. So what we're then going to do is do font dash colour, which isn't there, so we'll try something else. We'll try typing in colour and see which ones we've got. So we've got nothing there talking about anything apart from maybe just colour, so we'll just go with that one. Okay, so sometimes you don't know exactly what the codes are, you're not expected to know every single one. I clearly don't. It was either going to be text colour, font colour, or just colour, so you get used to kind of the format of this, but just have a look in the list and go with your gut instinct. So on this one, it needed to have a colour component of 1F for green and nothing else. So because it's RGB, we want no R, oh, there's always 2, 1F for green and no blue. Okay. It's then done talking about H1. by the look of it, so we can move on to doing H2. So I'm going to close the wiggly bracket and go over and do H2. Open a wiggly bracket. Now it needed the same font, so to be sensible about this, we're going to copy and paste it, and then we're going to put the semicolon in to get to the next bit. This one needs to be 16 and blue with 4C. So the font size needed to be 16, and on this one the colour was going to be blue 1C. Okay, 4C, sorry. I knew the chance of me remembering was slim. So there we go, so it's going to be 4C. Always worth checking. Add your name, centre number and candidate number to the bottom of your style sheet as a comment. Okay, now because we've opened one up already, they haven't given us an example of a comment at the top. Now it's either star forward slash or forward slash star. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if we try it, it should hopefully go grey. Okay, which it has. So it's forward slash star, and then the other way around, so star forward slash. So that's added a comment in at the bottom. Now if you can't remember that, if you just go to File and New CSS, it puts one in at the top as a comment, so you can have a little look at what it's supposed to be, now that you're not allowed to use the internet. Save and print your style sheet. File and save, and then you would do File and print code, and you'd choose your printer, whichever room you're in, and just print it out. Okay. If you can't put the comment on, you're obviously not going to be able to print it, so if worst comes to worst, just write it in at the bottom. It might break your code a little bit, but at least you get some marks. Attach your style sheet to the web page saved in step 12. So I'm done with that, so I'm going to close it off. And that's the original one. So this is our web page. Now to attach a style sheet, there's different ways of doing it. Some of you go up to somewhere at the top, format, and then CSS styles, and then attach. If you just click on the page and go to class, you can attach the style sheet at the bottom as well, whichever way works for you. Click on browse, make sure you apply the one that you've edited, which is this one. Didn't work, it just crashed. And then press OK, and it's changed. It looks right. It looks like grass. Happy with that. So, save your web page, open it in a browser, put a screenshot of the browser window in your evidence document. File, save, preview it in a browser, do a print screen of it, and then put it into your evidence document. Let me get back to the task. Save your web page, open it in the browser, place a screenshot. Now it's got an S in brackets. Now the reason I was sort of pausing for a second is because we can't see the whole page. So I'm going to scroll down and do another one. It doesn't say to make sure you can see everything, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't want to see everything, and they've put an S in brackets, which makes me think they're going to want to see it. So again, sometimes you've got to think a little bit outside the box. I'm just going to annotate it, keep the examiner happy, my web page. So it then says you are now going to start using a web page. So we're guessing that we're done with this at the moment. So to keep everything nice and organised, I'm going to close that one off. Make sure that I've saved my evidence in case I lose it before I start doing the spreadsheet. Okay, so you're going to use the most efficient methods to examine and extract data using a spreadsheet. The exchange rates used by Back to Nature are fixed at the start of each month and are stored in the file rates. So use a suitable software package, load up the rates CSV, and then it's starting to talk about making a named range. So I'm going to find the rates one, double click on that, and it should automatically open in Excel. Okay, first thing to do, click here, resize everything so you can see what it is that you're dealing with. Then save it as an Excel workbook. If you have to close it for whatever reason, then you're not going to lose anything. So that's saved as an Excel workbook. It might tell us to save it with a different name in a minute, but we're going to save it anyway. Use cells A2 to C173 to make an exchange rate called EXCH. and show how you created it in your evidence document. So A2 to C173, A2, C173, and I'm going to click up there, type it in and press enter. And that is what I'm going to do as my print screen, and I'm just going to explain underneath how I did that. So I selected the cells and clicked here and typed in the name and pressed enter. Not the best sentence in the world, but then again, you probably didn't even need to write one, we're just doing it because we're nice. Okay, so we've got an arrow pointing up there. Notice I'm not faffing about with the print screen, I'm not resizing them, I'm not cropping them, I'm not making them a different text wrapping. Just leave them as they are, press enter at the end of each line, ready for your next one, and save it every time. Okay, so next task, save this file so that the named range can be used, which is basically telling us to save it as an Excel workbook, which we've done. So using a suitable software package, load the project and save it as a spreadsheet. I'm glad that they're starting to add that in because it causes all sorts of problems. I'm going to resize everything, file, save as, in the right folder, and call it, leave it what it already is, but make sure it's a workbook. Back to the task sheet. Place your name, centre number and candidate number in the centre of the header, and then an automated file name and path in the right of the footer. So insert header and footer. In the top centre it wanted your details, and in the right. Now I've seen some people starting to scroll down to get to the footer. You can do, but sometimes it seems to go forever. So if you go to the header and footer button up here and go to footer, it'll just take you there straight away. We then got to put the file name and path. Now if you put the file path in, notice that it says and path and file. So it automatically puts the file name in for you. You don't need to put it in again. Click into another cell. You can see that afterwards. No, actually, yeah, slash the project file. So it's got the file name there. So click into another cell and go to view and then normal, so that you haven't got that stupid view. These dotted lines just show you where it would print when we print it out. Notice you can't see the header and footer. If you were to go to file and print, you would see it, okay, but it's just you can't see it in this view. Enter a function in E3 to look up the name of the local currency for the project location. So we're using E3, we're typing in E3, we're looking up the name of the local currency and replicating it so it's shown for each product. So I've not done this task before, so I'll maybe sort of pausing and thinking every now and then as we go through. So we're looking up the name in E3, so the local currency name in E3. Okay, going to have a look back at the file that we're going to be using. So we haven't got the country code, we've got the name of the country and we've got the name of the currency. So in here we can see that we've got the name of the country. We now just need the name of the currency. So we're going to do equals VLOOKUP. It's probably best to always use a VLOOKUP rather than just a normal lookup. If it's not in alphabetical order, it won't work with just a lookup, whereas a VLOOKUP works for everything. So we're looking up the project location, which is South Africa. The table that we're looking for that data in is this table here. I'm going to select everything because it's going to want us to use our named range. Without clicking back on the other spreadsheet, I'm going to put a comma in to move to the next bit where it asks for the column index number. Now this table has 3 columns. The name of the currency is in column 2, so we just type in the number 2. Then the final one, it says, do you want an approximate match of the country or do you want to find the exact country? We want to find the exact country. We don't want to be looking for South Africa and it stop at the first time it finds the word South. So we're going to put false in. Close the bracket and press enter, and quite nice it says South African Rand there, so we know that it's going to be correct. You can drag that down and it will work for all of them. I'm going to press Ctrl and S or file and save or the disk because we've gained some marks there, it would be daft to lose them. So enter a function in F3, so the next one across, to look up the exchange rate of the local currency for the project and replicate it so it's shown for each product. So again, this time we're looking up the exchange rate, then do equals VLOOKUP. We're going to look up the project location. We're going to use the exact same table as before, which was this one here. Don't include the headings along the top, it just confuses matters. Use a comma. This time the exchange rate is in column 3, so we put 3, and then after, again, we want an exact match, so we put false. If you get this question and you can do a VLOOKUP, you've probably just got yourself 8 or 10 marks. Okay, so just auto-filled that down so it works. Again, sorry, flicking between them. Control and S to save it. In G3, so the next one across, calculate the value of donations in the local currency. Replicate this function so the value of donations is shown for each project. So, in US, there's been 14,000 donations. The exchange rate is this. So if we do equals that times the exchange rate and press enter, then it tells us how much they've made locally. We can drag that down and it will work. It sounds a lot more complicated than it is. If you've ever travelled and you're trying to work out the currency and you've used an exchange rate and it's, I don't know, 1.34 euros to the pound, you times the pound by 1.34. It's as simple as that. It's just hoping that you know how to convert currency, which I'm sure you do. Okay, so we've done that. It then says display all currency values with the appropriate currency symbol. If you see this come up, it's just a time thing. It's not difficult. You've just got to look through a list. So the first one is US dollars. That's easy. We can highlight that in the home tab. Under currency, we can set it to US dollars. We've then got to go through. These are the exchange rates, so that wouldn't be shown with the symbols, I don't think. I'm going to double check that on the mark scheme, but I don't think they'd expect you to show that in symbols. The value then for the local currency, you've got to go through and find out what the symbol is for South African Rand. Now to do that, in the currency one, go to more accounting, and then in the symbol one, you've got to look through, and it's a ridiculously long list, but we're basically looking for something that either says Rand or South African R or something like that. So it is just a case of going through the list. Without you having the internet to look at this, I think it'd be unlikely that they would ask it, but that's not to say that they won't. So I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me go through and pick every single one. I'll just leave them in this example, but you could obviously in the exam have time to go through that. So we'll leave them all as they currently are. Okay, I've just found and opened the mark scheme. These are what all the symbols should be. Most of them fairly standard. Algerian currency at the bottom, quite an interesting little symbol there, but if you notice, which is the most important thing, how many marks you would get for that. Okay, we're talking, what is there, sort of 8 marks there. It's just a case of looking through a list until you find the right one. So it is worth persevering with that in the exam. 8 marks is significantly more than your lookup functions. So definitely worth having a go at. Okay, so the next task then, it also tells you about formatting decimal places and things like that, just so that you know to format decimal places, use these buttons here. So if that one wanted no decimal places or 1, then you'd use these buttons. Okay, so it's now saying merge A1 to G1, so it's a single cell, and set the cell so it's a yellow 24-point italic font. So A1 to G1, merge and center. It needs to be yellow, size 24. It looks like this. Format the cell so it has a dark blue background and center align the contents of the cell. So a dark blue background and center align, which we have done already. It then says save and print the spreadsheet showing formula. So firstly save it. To show formulas, I don't know why it said that. It's worked now. To show formulas, Go to formulas and then show formulas. Always get in the habit of this. Click here, double click between so that it resizes everything. You're not going to lose any marks even though you've got the formulas correctly. It then says to print it, landscape, row and column headings visible, contents of cells visible, which we've done, and it fits on a single page wide. So we've got three things to do when we go to print, file and print. Firstly, going to set it so that it fits to a page, fit sheets on one page. Then going to set it to landscape, so it looks like this, and then finally you need to get the row and column headings visible. You have to click on page setup at the bottom, sheet, and then row and column headings. So page setup, sheet, row and column headings, click OK, and you notice that you get A to G and 1 to 9 down the side. Print that out to the correct printer, and you're laughing. So the next one, print the spreadsheet showing the values. Make sure that the row and column headings are not visible. The contents are there, but it fits to a page. So take it out of formula view, resize everything, file, print. We need to go to page setup and take out the row and column headings and press OK and print it out like that. Examine both spreadsheets and extract a list of all the countries which have the word African in their currency name. Okay, so examine both spreadsheets and extract a list. So to do that, what we're going to do, we're going to start with a list that's got all of the countries in. And first we need to find the word African in their currency name. So in this spreadsheet, I'm going to highlight the three rows and go to data and then filter, and then in currency, in the text filters, we want it to contain the word African. So we press OK and it draws all of those out as an extract. It then says sort this extract into ascending order of currency, then descending order of country. So ascending currency, descending country. So to do that, highlight the data and click on sort. Now it's picked up the fact that the data has got headers in, so we're going to sort it by currency in ascending order, so that's A to Z. Then we're going to add a level and we're going to sort it by country in descending order, which is Z to A. If you think about being on a plane, when you descend into the country that you're travelling to, you're going down, so Z to A, that's going down too. Press OK and it will reorder your list. I'm just going to check I've done it right. Ascending of currency, descending of country. It then says print this extract showing the values. Make sure that the contents of row 1 are visible, which is why we had to make sure we didn't have the headers included, and that all extracted data is fully visible. So file, print, we can see everything, everything's there, just print it out. It already fits to a page, so I haven't got to worry. Okay, so then the next bit is to save and print your evidence document. So we're going to save that one first, go to the evidence document, print that out, make sure your name's on it, which it should have been from the start, and we're then done. Now, considering that's supposed to be a 2.5 hour exam, we've gone through that really quickly. So it does say, however, that after the exam, you've got time to highlight your markup. Now, your markup is your HTML. So, I'm wondering how many of you at this point have noticed something vital that I've missed out. This happens in the exam all the time when I've been walking around having a look at people as they're doing their work. They skip steps. Now, I'm doing this off screen, so it is more difficult to miss steps out, but you'll be doing this on paper, so you need to make sure that you're ticking things as you go along, because this says that highlight the external style sheet, which is fine, but to show that it's attached to the web page. Yet I haven't printed out the HTML or print screened it. So if we scroll back up, I'm hoping some of you spotted this as I missed it out. Step 22 says to place a copy of the HTML source in your evidence document. Without that, you have lost probably over half of the exam. Okay, so you need to get your web page back open if you've done this too, or anything else that you may have missed out, and add it back in. always go through and check your work. Now I've opened that up and it's opened in Internet Explorer, which we don't want. So I'm going to need to open that in Dreamweaver. So open with Dreamweaver. I'm going to need to go into the HTML of the web page by clicking on code. Select everything, Control and A, or just highlight it, and then copy that into your evidence document. So it was before this bit here. I'm going to put it on a new page. I'm going to start a new page after it, and that is your HTML source code. It's not the web address, it's nothing like that. This is your code. You would then print that out, and it's asking you on the task sheet, scroll back to the bottom, it's asking you on the task sheet to highlight the proportions of the markup which show the external style sheet is attached to the web page. Now initially you're going to look at this code and it looks scary, okay, but if you actually have a look, it's quite simple. So your CSS file is here and there's the word link. That shows that it's linked to it. So what you do with a highlighter, highlight that, a little annotation coming off there saying my CSS is attached. The table is center aligned. Okay, well there's the word center. It's near the word table. Highlight it and say this shows my table is center aligned. The alternative text for each image. So you're looking for your images. I'll set it for one of them where it's we're looking for the word alt. It's difficult to see on this mine because I've not I didn't do this bit, I just said that it was easy. But this bit here where you've got the alt, that is the bit that you would highlight to show the alternative text for each of your images. And then finally, that the hyperlink from the image opens here in a new window. So that's this one here. So you would say, you would highlight this and say that the link here is applied to this image, and it opens in a new window called _webmaster. And then you put that date in and you're finished.